Hey loves, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, I'm Rai and this is Rai's Reading Corner, and today we are going to be going over my top books of 2021 this far. Again, hello, I'm Rai. If this is the first time you are seeing my face, or if you have not hit that subscribe button yet, I would greatly appreciate it. It really helps my channel grow. So I cannot believe we're already at the halfway point of the year. It doesn't seem possible, but this is one of my favorite videos to film because it's really fun to reflect at the end of the year to see which books actually made my top books of 2021. So I'm going to break this video down into the months. So in my bullet journal, as I grab it, I rank or pull my top 2 books each month. It's nothing fancy. Nothing fancy. But I keep note of what are my top 2 books of each month, and it's really interesting because some months I have trouble picking 2 books that I really love, and there's some months where I have a lot of trouble narrowing it down. So just because they're the top books of that month doesn't necessarily mean they're going to make my top books of 2021. And there's sometimes where I have months where maybe I really have more than top 2 books, and more books from that month will add onto my final list of 2021 that I will film at the end of the year. So let's get started, and let's start off with my favorite books from January. Okay, so my favorite books of January are by the same author, but my top book for that month was Of Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I read the entire Sarah J. Maas series in January, kind of lost my mind, but this one is my favorite book. This made me cry at the end, and it takes me a lot to cry in a book, and I did. This is part of the Court of Thorns and Roses series, and I think this is the 3rd one, I want to say. I don't remember. I think it's the 3rd one, but it was really good, and I do kind of like the new covers. They look kind of pretty on my shelf. I wasn't favorite. I didn't love them at the beginning, but I do like them now. And then my second favorite book of the month was A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. These books are both really great. I would say they're pretty close to being tied. They are chunky books, but they read really fast to me, which is, I think, a testament to how good they are. So for February, my 2 top books, number 1 was Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. This is one of my favorite thrillers of all time. This will definitely be on my top books of 2020, or 2021. I don't even know what I'm saying right now. This is a thriller that takes place in like a really high-end apartment in New York City. We have our main character who is a house sitter. She thinks it's too good to be true because she literally gets to live in this amazing apartment and gets paid for it. And obviously she probably should have followed her gut because, like I said, it's thriller. Things do not seem as they do, and things go bad. So this thriller I read in less than 24 hours. So if that says anything, it's pretty amazing. All right, my second favorite book of February was a fantasy, and it was From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This was a great read again. This is fantasy with vampires and wolves, and if you've not heard the series, you probably have, but again, our main character, Poppy, she was chosen to be a maiden, and she has to live in solitary. She cannot have any communication with anybody, but she doesn't like that lifestyle, and she doesn't want to be who she's supposed to be destined to be, and so she meets some people around the way that kind of teaches her skills that she's not supposed to have, and then Hawk becomes her guard, and things happen, and it is a romance. It's indie published, which I always love, which means I love the cover of the book. But yeah, this is number 1 in the series. There's 3 out right now. The first book definitely is the top one for me so far. Okay, so am I on March? So for March, yes, March, my top book was The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. So Kirsten from Kirsten's Corner had been begging me to read this book, and I finally did. And again, this will be another one that's on the top books of 2020, 100%. 2021, why do I keep doing this? What is wrong with me? So this is historical fiction, which is not something I generally read, and look at this, it's going to be a top book. And our main characters, I think that her name's Cora? No, Lenny is her first name. It's been a while since I read this one. And Cora is her mom, and they are living during the 60s, and they're recovering from, her father was in the Vietnam War and he has PTSD, but this was prior to it being like a out thing, or people talked about PTSD and had diagnosis of PTSD. And so her father's really struggling, and so he decides they move his family to Alaska, and it's about her being there and the father you know, struggling with PTSD and abusive and being alcoholic, and it's just a great coming of age story and dealing with parents not, you know, her not being the same father that he always thought he was. And it's just a really great book. It's moving. I cried again. Yeah, it's a chunker, but I read this so fast. I read hundreds, like I think I read over like 200 pages in one day. So great story. The next one was my second favorite book of the month, and it was Actor Abe H. Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is the third book in the, or installment in the Get a Life Chloe Brown like trilogy, the Brown sisters. They can be read isolated, but they do have some connection to all of them. This is the youngest Brown sister. She is, they call her a hot mess, and she kind of hasn't really found her way yet, and so her family says they're going to cut her off kind of from their money. They're wealthy until she finds her way, and so she goes and she starts working at like this like inn or whatever, and she meets this guy and he's really grumpy, and they end up falling for each other. It has autistic rep in there, which is really nice to see. And yeah, this is a really good romance. I really love Talia Hibbert's writing. Unfortunately, it wasn't my favorite of the three. I still like Dani Brown more. I don't know if this will be on my top books of 2021. This was probably my least favorite of the Brown sisters, but it still was really good, and it was an enjoyable read, and it was a fun romance. All right, we are now to April, and so my top book of April is Lost in the Neverwoods by Aiden Thomas. This is a Peter Pan retelling. I love Aiden Thomas. They are becoming one of my favorite authors, I would say. They also wrote Cemetery Boys. This is a story about our girl Wendy, and she has two brothers, and they vanish, and then they randomly, Wendy appears again. She doesn't remember anything, but her brothers did not. So she is trying to figure out what happened to her brothers, and now other kids start to disappear as well. And then she meets Peter, and she thought Peter was like make-believe, wasn't real, and so now she's confused because she thought Peter was from made-up stories. But here he is living in the town, and she's trying to piece together what happened to her, where's her brothers, and where are all these other children going. So it has a lot of a thriller mystery kind of aspect as well. I absolutely love this. The world building in here is really fun, and it's definitely kept me on the edge of my toes trying to figure out what happened to her brothers. So I would highly recommend this one, obviously, as well. And my second favorite book of that month is The Henna Wars by Adiba Jagardar. This is a sapphic romance, so obviously amazing. And this is about two young girls. We have one girl who is really afraid that she's going to lose her family because she comes out as a lesbian, and they don't believe that someone in their culture, they're from Bangladesh living in Ireland, could be a lesbian, so they have trouble accepting it. And when she's at a wedding, she meets another girl that she used to know when she was younger, and she kind of has feelings for her, but she thinks it's just gonna go because she was at a wedding. But come to be, she's at their school for the beginning of the school year, and she starts to kind of have feelings for her, but they end up opening henna businesses for one of their classes at school in their competition. And yeah, it's really cute. I think it talks a lot about culture and identity. I learned a lot about Bangladesh and the culture, which was really fun, and the romance between them two is really cute. So yeah, this was awesome. I don't know why I waited to read this for so long, but I have Adiba Jagardar's new book, and I'm really excited to start that very, very soon. Okay, for the month of May and June were really good reading months for me. I had so much trouble picking top books for these ones. Definitely the books that I read in May and June are not just my favorite books of 2021, but will probably be my favorite books of all time. So let's start with May. So my number one is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I read all of Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows in the month of May. I have a newfound love for Leigh Bardugo. Anything that she writes, I want to read. Six of Crows, I'm obsessed. Literally obsessed. I want shirts with anything that has to do. I want decor for my bookshelves. I just love it. And I feel so, the world building and the character building in Six of Crows is amazing. If you're not familiar with this, so the Shadow and Bone trilogy is the first three books. This is a duology with Crooked Kingdom, and this takes place after Shadow and Bones. It does follow different characters, but in this Crooked Kingdom, other characters are intertwined with this from the first three books in that series. It just, I love every single one of these characters. I love the world building. I felt so connected to the characters. I can't stop gushing about this, but you need to read these. If you did not like Shadow and Bone, please still give this a chance, because I feel like you still could really, really like this. All right, my second favorite book is a middle grade book, and it's Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. So this, again, I think will be on my top books of 2021 as well. I had to think there. This, again, like I said, is a middle grade book and is a fantasy, and our main character, Amari, lives in kind of a rougher part of town, and she goes to a private school where she is one of very few African Americans there, and she definitely deals with a lot of racism and injustice. Then her brother disappears, and everyone thinks that he got picked up and were involved in some gang, but she knows that's not true, that he was really serious about school. He says he was working a job, and she's trying to figure out what happened to her brother. But we find out that his disappearance is intertwined with a magical world type school, work, business. And we find out that there's actually, our world is intertwined with magical creatures. So like you could be walking down the street and it looks like a normal person to the average eye, but in reality it's a witch in disguise. So that's like every childhood's dream. So this takes place now. She goes to this academy to try and figure out what happened to her brother, and she has to go through trials, and she meets friends, and there's a really good found family trope in there, which you'll see is in my favorite books. A lot of them have the found family trope, so great read. There will be a second one coming out soon, but pick it up. Just because it's middle grade, still pick it up. Some people hesitate about middle grade, but this book was just perfection, and I sometimes even forgot it was a middle grade book. So B.B. Alston just killed it with this book. June, I had so many 5-star books, so many new time favorites, so June was so hard for me. So for June, I could not pick a book 1 and a book 2. To me, these are tied. So let's start off with The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Why I have slept on this for so long, I don't know. This book is just pure perfection. It made me cry. I felt every emotion that all these characters were feeling. It just was literally one of the best books I've ever read, and well written. This is again by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which I don't even know why I didn't say. So I feel like a lot of people know about this book, but a main character, Evelyn Hugo, was very famous. She was a movie star, and she has finally decided that she's going to tell about her life and her life story, but she wants to do it to a certain person in the company, or like in a newspaper company, and they don't really understand why they pick this lady because she's not very well established. She's young, and so this is her story of her telling Monique, who's the girl, how she lived her life. And so they're trying to figure out who Evelyn Hugo's true love was, and obviously she was married 7 different times. I literally felt like this was a real story. I had to catch myself wanting to look up certain people because it felt so real. So this is a great book. It's emotional, well written, well established. The characters are phenomenal. Even if you're not a historical fiction person, again, still try this. There also is queer rep in it too, so highly recommend it. And the last one I'm going to talk about is Cricket Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. This is the second book in the duology of 6 of Crows, and this I literally cried. I was getting my nails done and cried in public, even though it's chunky. Again, it follows the same characters that we read in 6 of Crows, but again, they're going on kind of a different journey. It picks up right after the first one, and this is the one where we do get characters kind of intertwined from the original Shadow and Bone trilogy. So Leigh Bardugo, phenomenal. So these are all my top books so far of 2021, broken down by the months. Please let me know down in the comments below what's your favorite book or books you've read so far this year. I would really be interested, and hopefully I could get some really good book recs to read the rest of the year. And yes, I'm decked out in 4th of July gear because it's currently 4th of July as I am filming this. So again, let me know down in the comments below and of your favorite books. So if you'd like to take this journey with me, please make sure you press that subscribe button and hit that notification button so you don't ever miss any of my content. If you want to be my friend on any of my other social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all the information is linked down below. So stay kind, loves, and I'll see you next time. Bye! So pretty from the minute that I met you.